Solomon's Temple, also known as the First Temple, stands as one of the most magnificent and significant structures in ancient Israel's history. Built by King Solomon, the son of David, this grand edifice was not only a center of worship, but also a symbol of God's presence among his people. Today we delve into the rich history, architectural marvels, and spiritual significance of Solomon's Temple, highlighting its construction, purpose, and legacy. The story of Solomon's Temple begins with King David, who longed to build a house for the Lord. King David, a man after God's own heart, had achieved many victories and established a strong kingdom. Despite his accomplishments, he felt a deep yearning to create a permanent dwelling place for the Ark of the Covenant, which symbolized God's presence among his people. David's desire was not just about constructing a physical building, it was about creating a sacred space where the people of Israel could come together to worship and experience the divine presence. He envisioned a grand temple that would stand as a testament to God's greatness and serve as a central place of worship for generations to come. David's passion for this project was fueled by his love for God and his desire to honor him in a tangible way. He began making preparations, gathering materials, and even drawing up plans for the temple. However, despite his fervent desire and meticulous planning, God had different plans for David. God told David that his son Solomon would be the one to construct the temple. This revelation was both a disappointment and a relief for David. While he was saddened that he would not see the temple built in his lifetime, he was also comforted by the knowledge that his son would carry on his vision. Solomon, known for his wisdom and understanding, was chosen by God to fulfill this monumental task. The responsibility of building the temple was a significant one, and it required not only architectural skill, but also spiritual insight. Solomon's reign was marked by peace and prosperity, providing the perfect conditions for such an ambitious project. Under Solomon's leadership, the construction of the temple began. The process was meticulous and grand, involving skilled craftsmen, precious materials, and a clear vision of what the temple should represent. The temple was not just a building, it was a symbol of God's covenant with Israel, and a physical manifestation of his promise to David. This promise was both a continuation of David's legacy and a fulfillment of God's covenant with Israel. The covenant was a sacred agreement between God and his people, and the temple was a tangible sign of that relationship. It was a place where sacrifices were made, prayers were offered, and God's presence was felt. The construction of the temple was a monumental task that required immense resources and labor. Solomon spared no expense in ensuring that the temple was built to the highest standards. He enlisted the help of skilled artisans and craftsmen from across the region, and he imported the finest materials, including cedar wood from Lebanon and gold from Ophir. The temple's design was intricate and detailed, reflecting the grandeur and majesty of God. Every aspect of the temple, from its foundation to its pinnacle, was carefully planned and executed. The temple's construction was not just a physical endeavor, it was a spiritual journey for the people of Israel. It was a time of unity and collaboration, as everyone came together to contribute to this sacred project. The temple was a symbol of their faith and devotion, and its completion was a cause for great celebration. The Lord declares to you that the Lord himself will establish a house for you. When your days are over and you rest with your ancestors, I will raise up your offspring to succeed you, your own flesh and blood, and I will establish his kingdom. This promise was a source of hope and assurance for David. It was a reminder that God's plans were greater than his own, and that his legacy would continue through his descendants. The temple was a testament to God's faithfulness and a symbol of his enduring covenant with Israel. It was a place where the people could come to seek God's presence, offer their sacrifices, and experience his grace. The temple stood as a beacon of hope and a reminder of God's promises. It was a place of worship, a place of refuge, and a place of community. The temple was not just a building, it was a living testament to the relationship between God and his people. It was a place where heaven and earth met, where the divine and the human intersected. The temple was a sacred space that held deep spiritual significance for the people of Israel. It was a place where they could connect with God, seek his guidance, and experience his presence in a profound way. The temple was a symbol of God's love and faithfulness, and it stood as a reminder of his promises to his people. He is the one who will build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. 2 Samuel chapter 7, 11, 13. This verse encapsulates the essence of God's promise to David and Solomon. It highlights the significance of the temple and its role in God's plan for his people. The temple was not just a physical structure, it was a symbol of God's covenant and a testament to his faithfulness. It was a place where the people of Israel could come to worship, seek God's presence, and experience his grace. The temple was a sacred space that held deep spiritual significance, and its construction was a monumental achievement that reflected the devotion and faith of the people of Israel. The temple stood as a beacon of hope and a reminder of God's promises, and it continues to hold a special place in the hearts of believers to this day. Solomon, known for his wisdom and wealth, undertook the massive project with meticulous planning. He enlisted the help of King Hiram of Tyre, who provided cedar wood, skilled craftsmen, and laborers. Solomon conscripted tens of thousands of men for the work, demonstrating the immense scale of the undertaking. King Solomon conscripted laborers from all Israel, 30,000 men. He sent them off to Lebanon in shifts of 10,000 a month, so that they spent 1 month in Lebanon and 2 months at home. Adoniram was in charge of the forced labor. 1 Kings chapter 6 verse 13 and 14. The construction of the temple took 7 years. The structure was built using the finest materials, cedar wood from Lebanon, gold overlays, and precious stones. The inner sanctuary, the most holy place, housed the Ark of the Covenant, symbolizing God's presence. The temple that King Solomon built for the Lord was 60 cubits long, 20 wide, and 30 high. The portico at the front of the main hall of the temple extended the width of the temple, that is 20 cubits, and projected 10 cubits from the front of the temple. 1 Kings chapter 6 verse 2 and 3. Upon completion, Solomon held a grand dedication ceremony. He offered sacrifices and prayed for God's blessing and presence in the temple. The glory of the Lord filled the temple, signifying his acceptance and dwelling among his people. When Solomon finished praying, fire came down from heaven and consumed the burnt offering and the sacrifices, and the glory of the Lord filled the temple. The priests could not enter the temple of the Lord because the glory of the Lord filled it. 2 Chronicles chapter 7 verses 1 and 2. Solomon's temple became the central place of worship for Israel. It was here that the priests performed sacrifices, celebrated festivals, and led the people in worship. The temple also played a crucial role during major festivals like Passover, Pentecost, and the Feast of Tabernacles. 3 times a year, all your men must appear before the Lord your God at the place he will choose, at the festival of unleavened bread, the festival of weeks, and the festival of tabernacles. No one should appear before the Lord empty-handed. Deuteronomy chapter 16 verse 16. Despite its grandeur and significance, Solomon's temple was eventually destroyed by the Babylonians in 586 BC. This devastating event marked the end of an era and the beginning of the Babylonian captivity. The destruction of the temple was a profound loss for the Israelites, both spiritually and culturally. He set fire to the temple of the Lord, the royal palace, and all the houses of Jerusalem. Every important building he burned down. 2 Kings chapter 25 verse 9. Even in its destruction, the memory of Solomon's temple continued to inspire hope and faith among the Jewish people. The promise of restoration and the eventual construction of the Second Temple under Zerubbabel symbolized renewal and God's enduring covenant with his people. In the first year of Cyrus king of Persia, in order to fulfill the word of the Lord spoken by Jeremiah, the Lord moved the heart of Cyrus king of Persia to make a proclamation throughout his realm and also to put it in writing. This is what Cyrus king of Persia says: "The Lord, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he has appointed me to build a temple for him at Jerusalem in Judah. Any of his people among you may go up, and may the Lord their God be with them." 2 Chronicles chapter 36 verse 22 and 23. The significance of Solomon's temple cannot be overstated. It was not merely a physical structure, but a symbol of divine presence and a focal point for the Jewish faith. The temple stood as a testament to the glory of God and the dedication of the people of Israel. Its destruction was a profound loss, not just in terms of architecture, but in spiritual and cultural identity. The hope for its restoration was a driving force for generations, a beacon of faith that endured through exile and hardship. During the Babylonian captivity, the Jewish people were scattered and faced immense challenges. Yet the memory of the temple and the promise of its restoration provided a sense of unity and purpose. The writings of the prophets, including Jeremiah, offered hope and a vision of a future where the temple would be rebuilt and the people would return to their homeland. This hope was not just a dream, but a deeply held belief that sustained the Jewish community through years of displacement. Jeremiah's prophecies were particularly significant. He spoke of a time when the Lord would bring the people back to Jerusalem and restore their fortunes. His words were a source of comfort and inspiration, reminding the Jewish people that their covenant with God was unbroken, even in the darkest times. The promise of a new temple was intertwined with the promise of a renewed relationship with God, a return to the land, and a restoration of their identity as a chosen people. The role of Cyrus the Great in this narrative is pivotal. As the king of Persia, he was an unlikely instrument of divine will, yet according to the biblical account, God moved his heart to issue a decree that allowed the Jewish people to return to Jerusalem and rebuild the temple. This decree was a fulfillment of Jeremiah's prophecy and a turning point in Jewish history. It marked the end of the Babylonian exile and the beginning of a new chapter for the Jewish people. The return to Jerusalem was a monumental task. The city and the temple lay in ruins, and the people faced the daunting challenge of rebuilding their lives and their sacred space. Under the leadership of Zerubbabel, the governor of Judah, and Joshua, the high priest, the community came together to lay the foundation of the Second Temple. This act of rebuilding was not just a physical endeavor but a spiritual renewal, a reaffirmation of their faith and their commitment to God's covenant. The construction of the Second Temple was a labor of love and devotion. Despite opposition and obstacles, the Jewish people persevered, driven by their faith and their hope for a restored relationship with God. The temple was completed and dedicated with great joy and celebration. It stood as a symbol of God's enduring presence and the resilience of the Jewish people. The Second Temple became the center of Jewish worship and a place where the community could gather, pray, and offer sacrifices. The rituals and ceremonies performed in the Second Temple were central to Jewish religious life. The temple was a place of pilgrimage where people from all over the land would come to worship and celebrate the major festivals. It was a place of teaching and learning, where the Torah was read and interpreted. The temple also served as a reminder of the covenant between God and his people, a tangible expression of their faith and their identity as a nation chosen by God. The legacy of the Second Temple extends beyond its physical existence. It left an indelible mark on Jewish history and culture. The teachings and traditions that emerged from the Temple period continue to influence Jewish life to this day. The hope and faith that sustained the Jewish people through the destruction of the First Temple and the rebuilding of the Second Temple are a testament to their resilience and their enduring relationship with God. The story of the Temple is a story of hope, faith, and the unbreakable bond between God and his people. Today, the remnants of the Temple in Jerusalem continue to inspire and remind us of this rich history. The Western Wall, a surviving remnant of the Second Temple, is a place of prayer and pilgrimage for Jews from around the world. It stands as a symbol of the enduring legacy of the Temple and the hope for a future restoration. The story of the Temple is not just a historical account, but a living tradition that continues to shape the faith and identity of the Jewish people. The hope for the restoration of the Temple remains a powerful aspect of Jewish faith. It is a hope that looks forward to a time of peace and fulfillment, a time when the covenant with God will be fully realized. This hope is a source of strength and inspiration, a reminder that even in the face of destruction and exile, the promise of restoration endures. The legacy of the Temple is a testament to the power of faith and the enduring hope that sustains the Jewish people through all challenges. In conclusion, the legacy of Solomon's Temple and the hope for its restoration are central themes in Jewish history and faith. The story of the Temple is a story of resilience, faith, and the unbreakable bond between God and his people. It is a story that continues to inspire and guide the Jewish community, reminding them of their rich heritage and their enduring hope for the future. The Temple, in its destruction and its promise of restoration, stands as a symbol of the enduring covenant between God and his people, a testament to the power of faith and the hope that never fades. The story of Solomon's Temple is a testament to the dedication, faith, and craftsmanship of ancient Israel. It symbolizes the profound relationship between God and his people, a place where heaven touched earth. While the physical structure no longer stands, its spiritual legacy continues to inspire and remind us of the importance of faith, worship, and the presence of God in our lives.